This video is the one to watch if your sales have slowed down and you have no idea why, or if your sales never picked up in the first place and you're trying to figure out how to get to consistent sales. So today I want to focus on why you're not making sales in 2025. And this is coming from someone who has experienced slow seasons for my own online boutique, as well as slow weeks, days, months, and seasons for the countless retail businesses that I worked for 11 years before I started my online boutique. So if you're feeling like sales are too slow, it's the economy, you're blaming the algorithms and all the things, I want you to know that every business, big and small, they're going to go through their periods of time where nothing seems to be working. But the whole point of this video is to tell you the various reasons why a business may not be making sales and ultimately what you can do to change things and turn things around. So in my experience, I find that the reason that a business is not making sales often doesn't have anything to do with the product. It typically is in what they're avoiding, the things that they are not doing. And I'm going to specifically talk to, obviously, the small business owners out there because I work with small business owners. I am a small business owner and I know the things that people are avoiding. Every single day, I talk to my followers and my students in my program and I ask them, what are you doing to make the sales that you desire? And they'll say things like, I'm posting consistently. And then I dig deeper and I say, well, what's consistent? And they'll say, oh, I post 3 to 5 times a week. And while that may be consistent to you, it may not be consistent enough, right? So I want to start with social media and the role that social media should play in your business, especially in 2025, and ultimately how your misunderstanding and misuse of social media is going to play a role in whether or not you drive sales at all, and also if those sales become consistent. So the first point that I want to make is that most business owners haven't made the shift from being a social media user to being a social media marketer. Using social media as a regular person, back in the day, we used to share our little selfies and our outfit of the days, and we would just throw up some hashtags and go about our day. You can't use social media the exact same way as a business. As a business using social media, you need structure, you need strategy, you need a clear-cut purpose for every single piece of content that lands on that platform. And even more importantly, you need to understand who you're creating that content for and ultimately what you want them to do in particular after they see that content. I find that a lot of people think that they have a strategy, but what they actually have is a schedule. When I say, what's your strategy? They say, well, I post every single day at 10 a.m. That's a schedule. If it's tied to timing and days of the week, that doesn't make it strategic. Making your social media posts or your social media content strategic means first and foremost clarifying who your target audience is. Secondly, being clear about what your brand is all about, what your brand's mission, vision, values, personality, tone, things like that. What are those elements of your brand? Because those elements of your brand need to be exemplified through your content, through your messaging, through how your brand shows up on the platform. Because ultimately, the role of your content is to attract, nurture, and then convert your target audience. Not just throw content up there and hope that people see it and they decide that they want to purchase. So there are 3 roles, as I just mentioned, that your social media content should be playing. First, it should be attracting. Secondly, it should be nurturing. And lastly, it should be converting. So if you're posting on your schedule and you're saying to yourself, my social media content isn't converting, what you really want to ask yourself is, am I doing a good job of first and foremost attracting my target audience? And if you think you're doing a good job at that, then you want to secondly ask yourself, am I doing a good job of nurturing the audience that I have? And if you say yes to that, then we can say, okay, well, why is the content not converting? So let's talk a little bit more deeply about branding versus marketing and how it plays a role in your ability to get sales. 99% of the business owners that I work with within the Boutique Academy and who I coach have no idea what branding actually is. And before I go too deeply into it, I want you to know that sales become significantly easier when your branding is in order because your marketing is typically going to also be in order, and marketing is going to support your ability to drive consistent sales. So let's start with branding first things first. I already gave you a pretty big synopsis of what branding entails: your mission, your vision, your values, personality, your tone of voice, your brand story, things like that. But also, the bigger point is that branding is all about the emotion that you want to evoke within a person when they interact with your business, wherever they choose to interact with it. The biggest lesson that I've learned about sales over time is that people make purchasing decisions emotionally first and then logically. Logically, we think a person sees a product and logically, if you like it, you're going to buy it. But really what happens is we first form an emotional attachment to that product, or we don't form an emotional attachment to the product. Think about the last time you saw something online and you said, oh, I feel like I need that. And then you, in your brain, you're saying, why do I need it? Like you're justifying why you need that product. Why are you going to click the link to go to that website? There was a feeling that happened first before logic kicked in. Logic didn't say, oh, you have a broken thing in your house, you need that thing. Emotion said, oh, I'm so tired of that thing being broken because of the pain that I feel because the thing is broken. It was the emotion first and foremost that led you to believe that you needed that product. So in figuring out what your brand strategy is going to be, a huge component of that is clarifying the emotion that you want people to feel when they see and interact with your marketing. So marketing is all about bringing your brand strategy to life. When I talk to, I'm going to speak specifically to boutique owners, well, just product in general. A lot of times they're just posting pictures of their products, white backdrop, black backdrop, green backdrop, whatever. But it's literally just a picture of the product. That alone does not drive a sale. That alone doesn't create interest. I think about when I first started my boutique, I literally used to rely on a singular picture of a product, and I would use that picture for the product image on my website. I would use that picture for the content on my social media. I would use that picture for the ads. I was trying to use one singular picture of a product and hoping that it would attract all these different people, that it would do the job of a bunch of different departments in my business. In hindsight, it was actually quite insane. So because I didn't have a brand strategy, that meant that I didn't know what words to put on a graphic. Like, sure, it could be the picture of the product, but like, what do the words need to say to evoke an emotion in my ideal customer? Not just new arrivals, not just shop now. Like, what is the significance of this product to my target audience? And then testing different things, like saying it in different ways to see what message resonates best with my audience. I was just sharing pretty pictures, and I think that y'all are likely doing the same, right? So marketing becomes effective when your brand strategy is clear, when you're clear about who your target audience is, why your brand exists, what's unique about it, what your brand's personality is, and all those things. Marketing becomes more simple, it becomes more effective, and it becomes more fun because you have reason and purpose behind how you're doing that. Now, as a result of your branding and marketing being fantastic, sales becomes simple because the branding and marketing is happening on the front end. Typically, the selling is happening on the back end. A lot of the bigger businesses that you support, shop with these days, the sale is actually occurring more so on the back end than on the front end. It's not always because you saw a social media post that you decide to purchase something. Sometimes it's because you got an email or you were in an email automation, you got an abandoned cart email, you saw a retargeting ad, you got a text message, right? So going back to the point of attracting, nurturing, converting, if my social media content is attracting and maybe it's doing some of the nurturing, more of the nurturing is going to happen behind the scenes via emails, texts, ads, things like that. And that's what's actually going to eventually drive the sale. And so that leads me to my next point. Most people are trying to drive a sale in the wrong place or on the wrong platform. Social media is great for attraction. It is not that great for conversion. Sure, that might be the place where someone becomes aware that your brand exists, but to rely on social media alone is like a death trap at the end of the day. And I'm sure you guys saw, I think earlier this year, that was January, TikTok fell off the face of the earth for 24 hours, and there were so many small business owners who were prepared to shut their business down because their whole entire business had been built off of TikTok and TikTok Shop. They had no idea how they were going to go about making sales. So just as I had just mentioned, you want to really use social to attract people, a little bit of nurturing, but you really want to drive them off of the platform, prioritize growing your email list and your text list, and of course, running some ads, because that is where true conversion is going to occur. And also, this is where you're going to become more in control of the conversion journey, because with social media, as you know, the algorithm is controlling who's going to see what, when, or why. We have no control over that. Even the people who follow us often aren't seeing our content. A small percentage of our audience is seeing the content. So with that in mind, you really want to ask yourself, not just how do I make the best possible content, but how do I make the best possible content to attract and get this person off this platform and into a world where I can control the nurturing and the conversion into a sale. Now, let's say you're doing a good job of driving people off the platform. And let's say you are the person who has an email list, you have a text list, you maybe dabbled here and there with ads. A big reason why a lot of people are not making consistent sales is because they're not consistently using the tools that would drive a sale. Earlier, I talked about how most people will tell me that they have a social media strategy, but what they really have is a schedule. Same thing for email and text marketing. Oftentimes, people tell me that they send at least one email per week. But in my world, I send emails whenever I feel like it. I send emails because I know that emails support my ability to make money. Think about a brand that you shop with regularly or that often sends you emails. I always use I always use Fashion Nova as an example here. Then people blow it out the water with email and text marketing. It's pretty crazy, but it's for a reason. They know that the more interactions that they have or that we have with their brand, the more likely they are to get us to click on something. And then when we click on something, we're going to go to a website, we're going to sign up for the text list, or we're going to be retargeted with an ad. Like, they're nurturing us and building us to the point of wanting to purchase something, right? So as a small business owner, just because you're small doesn't mean that there's a cap or a limit on how much marketing you can do. You're going to build your business by marketing more. You're going to make more sales by marketing more. Now, this is not me saying that you need to send as many emails as Fashion Nova. This is not me saying that you need to send emails every single day. But this is me saying that you probably need to send more emails than you're currently sending. You also probably need to segment your email list, but we'll talk about that at another time. And text marketing. So often people tell me that they don't send text because it's too expensive. I don't know if y'all know this, but it takes money to make money, right? And it's a lot easier to be confident about the text marketing when you know what you're doing and when you have strategy and when you know how to use the platform. So this may mean that you need to learn the platforms. Maybe you need to take a class, or maybe you need to hire a coach or something, something should be in place to help you to learn, because ultimately the tools and the platforms are what are going to support you being able to make a sale. Now, we're not going to dive too deeply into advertising. However, I am a strong believer that every brand needs to run ads at some point. I love paid advertising, honestly, truly. Like, I wish I had learned it way earlier than I actually did, but it changed the game for me, and it really helped me to understand the power that I possessed as a business owner or as a marketer within my business. Having the control to test a bunch of different content, put my brand in front of a specific number of people based off of how much money I was willing to spend, being able to guarantee that I would get traffic every single day. Like, it was a game changer. So again, not going to dive too deeply here, but just know that email, text, and ads should be a regular ongoing part of your business if you want regular ongoing consistent sales. Now, the last thing that is quietly killing so many businesses' sales is inventory. You could have the best branding, the best marketing, the cutest content, the most beautiful website. If that product is wrong, you're not going to make no sales. If you have the wrong products for the audience that you've attracted, if your pricing is off, sales are not going to occur. I find that so many people in the last couple of years have kind of like shifted what their brand was. A lot of people built their business during the pandemic off of one style of products. And then when the pandemic was over, they tried to switch to another style of products, not understanding branding and not even understanding that they had built a brand that people were emotionally attached to. And then you try to take away the thing that they were emotionally attached to and introduce them to something else. It don't work like that. So there are a lot of people who are not making the sales that they could be making simply because they have the wrong product for the audience that they have, or their pricing is off, or they're not presenting that product to the audience in the right way, or they don't have enough of the right products. Like, maybe they have the right products, but they keep selling out of them too quick. And then instead of restocking the thing that works, they keep going on to new things. We have to learn inventory strategy at some point, because your inventory is your cash. As long as the inventory is right, the sales will always be right. Well, obviously coupled with marketing. The inventory is what truly, truly makes you money at the end of the day. So driving all that traffic to your website via your social media and your email and your text and your ads, and not having the right inventory, not having enough inventory, having the wrong prices, recipe for disaster in the sales department. So here's what I want to tell you guys. It's not that you are bad at business. It's just that you're running it without structure. You're running it without having clarity about what's right and what's wrong at the end of the day. And I've been there and I've done that. I've seen the bad parts and I've seen the good parts as well. The good parts being the money, the good parts being the consistent sales, the good part being the money in the bank. And I would love for you guys to get there too. So again, I want to encourage you guys to learn the hard lessons that you need to learn. Ask for help, whether that be in the comments or send me a DM on Instagram. If you are interested in working with me, I'll put the information about my program in the description of this video. You have to learn the things that actually are parts of being a business owner. If you want to stick this thing out, and if you want there to be longevity in the business that you are building, you have to learn the parts of the business. You have to learn the departments of the business. And you have to start taking this serious, because money on the line is always serious, in my opinion. Okay. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any questions about anything, feel free to drop them in the comments. Again, send me a DM on Instagram if you would like. I'll put the links to all the things in the description, and I can't wait to chat with you guys in the next video. Bye.